News time for Market Sense. A look at the day's business news. Our top business story is one that affects everyone, and it's the number of the day. Let's bring it up. R1. Consumers, of course, will have to fork out even more in many cases at the pumps this month as the petrol price reaches a record high, and that, of course, kicks in midnight tomorrow. The price changes always on the first Wednesday of the month. The price of petrol going up by 99 cents for 93 octane and R1 for the most expensive fuel, 95 unleaded. That brings the overall retail price $4.95 unleaded for motorists in Gauteng, who pay a little bit more because it has to be transported here. So that is the top price, R17.08 per litre, and at the coast a little bit less, R16.49. The Automobile Association has warned that the increases will be catastrophic for motorists. The Department of Energy absorbed most of last month's petrol price increase, remember, by diverting funds from the state levy after it was expected to rise by between 23 and 25 cents a litre due to a weakening rand and a higher oil price. That was capped as 5 cents, but government can no longer intervene, and we're seeing this now. The intervention was at that time an effort to provide consumers with relief following consecutive petrol price increases. However, government has warned that it won't be able to continue with those sorts of measures. Well, let's discuss. I'm now joined from our Pretoria studio by Leighton Beard from the Automobile Association. And Leighton, R1 on its own doesn't sound incredible, but add that to every litre, add it to every price increase that we've seen until now, right?
Sure. I mean, R1 on its own isn't very much, but, as you rightly say, Francis, if you add that to every other increase we've seen, it is really massive. This increase of R1, in some cases R1.24, in the case of illuminating paraffin, almost R1.40, we do believe these increases are catastrophic, and it doesn't bode well for economic growth. I think when you're looking at economic growth in the country, increases such as this make it very difficult for economic growth, and it certainly isn't great news at all. And, like I say, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and certainly we're not very happy that our predictions were on the mark. But again, it really is not very good news at all.
Explain a little bit more. You're using this very strong word, catastrophic. What are the implications?
I think when we look at the medium to longer term implications, I think everything is going to become more expensive. Consumer goods will certainly become more expensive as farmers, for instance, their input costs are going to increase. And when their input costs increase, they have to look at alternative ways of recovering that money. And that just means that the price that they charge for their goods is going to have to increase as well. So when you put that on top of, for instance, the VAT increase we saw earlier in the year, we put that on top of what motorists and road users are going to have to pay extra for fuel and for transport. And then you add in this factor of everything else is going to become more expensive. Cash-strapped South Africans are already pushed to the brink. A lot of them are struggling. Many more of them after tomorrow will find it very difficult to pay for fuel to get to work. So in the broader scheme, it is going to be catastrophic as people struggle to cope with this, as people struggle to make ends meet. We may find we're in a situation where people are looking to cut back on certain things just to afford to get to work. We already know that very many people spend a big chunk of their salaries on transport costs. That chunk is just going to get even bigger. And at some stage, people are going to say, well, we have to find alternative ways to deal with this. And those alternative ways may be buying less goods, may be, not traveling as much, which could be bad for them. So I think on the whole, when you look at the implications of this and you look at the longer term implications of the fuel increases on inflation, I think it is fair to say that these increases are going to be catastrophic.
Is there anything to be done? What do you want government to do?
Yeah, it's a really tough question to ask, Francis, and I'm not sure that we have all the answers. I think one of the things that we certainly would like to see is a policy stable environment, and an environment which is investor friendly, things that are going to make this country look attractive to investors, things that ameliorate these pressures that are put on by international geopolitical developments on locals, on the local currency. The local currency is under a lot of pressure, And cash-strapped South Africans with very little disposable income are going to find that that disposable income is going to shrink. So it's about creating an economic environment. And when we look at the fuel price is only one part of a bigger picture, and that bigger picture is the economy. And unless we deal directly with the economy, I think we can be looking at future fuel increases because of the two major factors. The one being the international petroleum prices, which obviously the South African government has very little to do with, but the other is the Rand-US dollar exchange rate. And that, I think, can be impacted by local political developments and local economic developments, which ease that pressure on the currency.
All right, thank you so much for your time this evening. Although, yes, it's very bad news for many, if not most in this country. Leighton Beard from the Automobile Association. And